Number 10, Facebook status. On March 23, 2011, a group of 4 friends robbed the International Bank of Commerce in Houston, Texas. The group was led by 18-year-old Stephanie Daniela Martinez and 19-year-old Ana Margarita Rivera, both who worked as tellers at the bank they robbed. The whole event was staged as a real robbery, and it was. However, it was all an inside job. The 2 girls recruited Martinez's boyfriend, 19-year-old Ricky Gonzalez, and Rivera's brother, 22-year-old Arturo Solano. The group of teenagers allegedly made off with about $62,000. After seemingly getting away with their crime, the group started posting cryptic messages on their Facebook pages. One post from Martinez read, "Get dollars," and her boyfriend updated his status to "Wipe my teeth with hundreds," and he continued to boast about wiping his posterior with $50 bills. Gonzalez also posted to his page saying, quote, "You have to pass the line sometimes to get this money." The group had left a trail of incriminating evidence on their Facebook pages, and after an anonymous tip to the police, the 4 of them were arrested on charges of bank robbery and embezzlement. It's probably not a good idea to post about being rich after the bank you work for is robbed, just for future reference. Number 9, bank robber provides his state ID. On January 25, 2021, 34-year-old Edner Flores attempted to rob a PNC bank in Chicago, and he was even nice enough to provide his temporary state ID to the bank teller. On Monday morning, Flores walked into the bank and actually waited patiently in line while he allowed the customer in front of him to finish their transaction. When it was his turn, he walked up to the counter and handed the teller a deposit ticket, in which he had written the amount of $10,000 and the words, "No die packs," and "armed" in quotation marks. The teller realized that Flores was attempting to rob the bank pretty much immediately and activated the silent alarm. It's said that the teller then stalled Flores until the police could arrive by asking him to provide his account information and ID. Flores foolishly wrote down his account number and then handed over his temporary state ID, consequently giving away his identity in the process. While he was distracted by the teller, the police showed up and stood behind Flores in line. He was quickly arrested and he confessed to trying to rob the bank. When questioned by police, he even pointed out himself in the bank's surveillance videos. Number 8, drive-thru bank robbery. On December 16, 2021, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, 21-year-old Daniel Hansen attempted to rob a bank from a drive-thru window. Hansen walked into the bank and was told immediately by bank staff that the lobby was closed due to COVID-19 restrictions, and all transactions were to be done at the drive-thru window. He complied with the bank policy and exited the lobby. However, he wasn't going to give up on his plan so easily. According to a criminal complaint, Hansen made his way to the drive-thru window on foot, and he told the teller that he would like to make a withdrawal. The teller then provided the man with a withdrawal slip and a pen, and on the slip, he wrote his demands for money. He wrote, "Put $10,000 in 2 bags, maybe you'll survive. Now." His plan did not end well for him, and after realizing that they were getting robbed, the alarm was activated by bank staff. When Hansen realized that he would be caught, he quickly fled the scene in the car he'd arrived in. Police discovered that Hansen had actually been kicked out of the downtown train station hours before the attempted robbery. Security said Hansen had gotten into an altercation with the security staff after he supposedly threatened to, quote, "shoot the place up and blow it up." Due to Hansen's homicidal behavior, the Albuquerque police took him to the University of New Mexico Hospital, where he received a mental health evaluation. The officers that transported Hansen stated that he was, quote, "boasting that when things get bad for him, he robs banks." Sounds like this guy really needs a new hobby, and this story definitely goes down in the books as one of the dumbest bank robberies of all time. Number 7, the getaway vehicle. In August 2017, partners in crime Gene Howell and Janet Thompson allegedly robbed the home banking company in Finger, Tennessee. 2 months later in October, they also robbed the People's Bank in Reagan, Tennessee. What really makes this case stand out, though, is the fact that Howell used an ATV as his getaway vehicle for the home banking robbery. And of course, the ATV was also stolen. It was reported that while the two acted as a team, Howell was in charge of actually robbing the bank, while Thompson was the getaway driver. While robbing the home banking company, Howell was armed with a handgun, and it said that he pointed it at 3 female workers and threatened to kill them if they didn't give him what he wanted. The bank staff complied with Howell's request after getting his money, and he made a quick escape on the ATV. The ATV was found later by police abandoned in the woods. Thompson had been waiting about 2 miles or just over 3 kilometers away for Howell on a backcountry road, where she picked him up and they made their escape. They didn't get away for long, though, because Howell and Thompson were both arrested 10 days later in Alcorn County, Mississippi on drug charges. Talk about bad life decisions. Number 6. The Rick James Robbers. 3 men were arrested in May of 2017 in Indianapolis, Indiana, following several bank robberies done by men wearing disguises that resembled 1980s star Rick James. The 3 men were later named as Dupree Jet, Damian McKissick, and Earl Lee Walker. The men started their crime spree by robbing an Advance America check cashing service. After getting away with their first heist, they planned another. The group then continued to rob 2 Indiana Members Credit Union locations in Indianapolis and Avon, Indiana. The group then tried their luck a 4th time and attempted to rob an IMCU in Carmel. However, this time it ended in a dangerous, high-speed chase with police. The men were ultimately caught, and all 3 of them were charged with conspiracy to commit robbery and attempted bank robbery. Walker was given the lightest sentencing of 6 years in prison, while Jett and McKissick were both given 24.4 years in prison. The 3 men were also required to pay back a total of $140,000 in restitution. After serving their sentences, the men will have a supervised release of 3 years. When everything was said and done, U.S. Attorney Josh Minkler said, "The reign of terror for these 3 men is over. They probably should have quit while they were ahead. They always say the 3rd time's the charm. Why even try for a 4th?" What disguise would you wear if you were robbing a bank? Tell us in the comments and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. Number 5. Bank robbers crash getaway vehicle. In August of 2016, 21-year-old Marquise Taylor and 22-year-old Varick Johnson were arrested after robbing a bank and crashing their getaway vehicle. The robbery took place at a Comerica Bank branch in Houston, Texas. Johnson was responsible for getting the cash, while Taylor was the getaway driver. It is reported that Johnson stormed into the bank and held the employees at gunpoint until he received the money he was after. The bank staff handed over the cash, and Taylor then sped away in an attempt to escape the police. A high-speed chase ensued. Police were hot on their tails, and during the chase, police witnessed one of the men throwing a gun out of the window as well as some of the stolen loot from their heist. The free money on the streets caused a frenzy of people trying to pocket as much of it as they could, which only made matters worse. The whole chase lasted about 10 minutes overall and ended abruptly when Johnson and Taylor crashed into another car in the middle of an intersection. The men tried to run, but the police caught and arrested them. All of the stolen cash was returned, and both men were charged for aggravated robbery and evading arrest. Number 4. Direct deposit. In September 2015, 61-year-old Paul Neverson walked into a NatWest Bank branch in England. He entered the building and approached an employee and held a knife up to his neck in an attempt to rob the place. His motivation? He needed money to buy a plane ticket to Corfu, an island in Greece, for a job interview. What job would be so important, you may ask? The interview was supposedly for a job as a golf coach. It must have been a lifelong dream of his. This story made the list because Neverson, after demanding money from the bank teller, apparently requested the money be directly deposited into his own bank account, giving up his account information and ultimately giving away his identity. Thankfully, according to bank staff, during the chaos, the cashier was able to hit the panic button and alert police. Neverson attempted to flee the scene, however, he didn't get far and was arrested about 400 feet or just about 125 meters away from the bank. According to reports, he tried to rob HSBC as well, but was interrupted by police. Danny Moore, the robber's lawyer, pushed that because Neverson had led a law-abiding life until this one incident, he should not spend the rest of his life in jail. The man served a reduced sentence of just 2 years in prison for his crimes. However, his current whereabouts are unknown. Number 3. Nowhere to run. In late fall of 2018, Maxim Popov, a Russian man, traveled to Svalbard, which is one of the northernmost settlements in the world, about 800 miles or just under 1,300 kilometers from the North Pole. The town has only a population of about 2,200 people, and it lies at the bottom of a mountainous valley near the town of Longyearbyen, which is a small coal mining community. In 1975, Longyearbyen became a tourist destination after an airport opened up in Svalbard, allowing more people to visit the area. Many tourists flock to the frozen wilderness on snowmobiles or dog sled tours, but there's also a global seed vault. The vault, which is built into the side of a mountain, houses nearly 1 million samples of plant seeds in case of a global catastrophe. Popov did not travel to Svalbard for any previous reasons listed, but instead he planned to travel there to buy a gun, something that was especially difficult in Russia. His original plan was to get a gun and end his own life. However, when the time came to do the deed, he found himself resisting. He later stated that he did not want to die, but his next course of action didn't exactly go to plan either. He decided to set his sights on robbing the only bank in town. It is said that Popov arrived in Svalbard in the middle of the dark season, which is late October to mid-February, so he had little to no real chance of escaping. He took his gun with him to the bank and demanded cash. He was able to fill his winter coat pockets with a substantial amount of money before disappearing into the dark day. He confessed later to police that he actually wanted to be caught because he needed help. Of course, this is not how the story ends, and eventually the man walked back to the bank where the police were waiting for him and turned himself in. He was sentenced to 1 year and 2 months in jail for the crime and was ordered to pay restitution to the bank employees he threatened at gunpoint. The robbery committed by Popov was and still is the only bank robbery to take place in Svalbard. Number 2, bank robber blows himself up in explosion. In August 2003, a 46-year-old pizza delivery man named Brian Douglas Wells walked in calmly to a PNC bank in Erie, Pennsylvania. He was using a cane and he had a mysterious lump visible under his clothing. Wells walks up to the counter and hands the cashier a note demanding a sum of $250,000 and claims that the device around his neck is a bomb. The teller at the bank informed Wells that they don't have that much money at their bank and instead handed the man a bag with $8,700 in it. After getting the money, he escaped and drove off in his own car. Interestingly, just a few miles from the bank, Wells stops his car and gets out to acquire another note that was hidden underneath a rock. When police finally caught up with him, they surrounded his car and got him on the ground. Here's where it gets really weird. Wells then starts to tell an elaborate tale to the police, a story in which he was taken hostage by 3 men while delivering a pizza from the Mamma Mia pizzeria where he worked. The men held him at gunpoint and strapped a bomb around his neck. They then forced the man to carry out the bank robbery and told him that if he failed, the bomb would explode in 15 minutes. The police do not believe the man because Wells did not seem to show any fear about the bomb. They assumed it was fake. However, after a few minutes, the device started to emit some loud beeping noises, and this is when Wells started to freak out. Just seconds after the beeping started, the device exploded, killing Wells instantly. It was later revealed in an FBI investigation that police did indeed find multiple complex notes in Wells' car that listed a series of tasks for him to complete, and he had just 55 minutes to do so before the bomb would explode. Each time a task was completed, he would be given more time before the bomb would detonate. Seems simple enough, right? Wrong. It was found out that Wells was in on the whole thing from the beginning. He was accompanied by Kenneth Barnes, William Rothstein, and Marjorie Deal Armstrong. The group planned to rob the bank in order to get enough money to hire Barnes to kill Deal Armstrong's father so that she could pocket the inheritance. Barnes had apparently gotten Wells involved through mutual acquaintance Deal Armstrong, who just so happened to be a prostitute. It's unknown what personal motives Wells had and why he agreed to strap a bomb to himself. In the end, Barnes was arrested and sentenced to 45 years in prison for both conspiring to rob a bank as well as aiding in the plotting and execution of the crime. Deal Armstrong was sentenced to life in prison plus another 30 years for armed bank robbery and for using a destructive device in a crime. Rothstein ended up dying of natural causes in 2003 and was never charged for the crime. The big question is, what was the reason for the bomb if they were planning on robbing the bank anyways? The world may never know. Number 1, The Godfather. In August of 1972, Brooklyn man John Wojtowicz and his friend Salvatore Natrilli made an attempt to rob the Chase Manhattan Bank in order to pay for Wotowicz's husband, trans woman Elizabeth Eden's gender reassignment surgery. It was later found out that the decision to rob the bank came after Eden had tried to kill herself, and Wojtowicz saw it necessary to get the money for the surgery in order for her to want to live. Wojtowicz and Natrilli were actually joined by Robert Westenberg on the day of the crime, and it was his job to give the demand note to the bank manager. However, after seeing a police car parked outside the bank, Westenberg fled the scene before the robbery even took place, leaving the other 2 men to fend for themselves. Wojtowicz previously worked as a bank teller, so he had some knowledge of bank operations. He drew inspiration from the movie The Godfather and even handed a note to the teller that read, "This is an offer you can't refuse." It was at this time that Natrilli realized that they were completely surrounded by police, and the pair had held the 7 bank employees hostage for 14 hours. When the NYPD and the FBI ambushed the robbers, Natrilli was shot in the chest and killed. Wojtowicz was arrested and ultimately served only 5 years in jail. The movie, Dog Day Afternoon, was inspired by these real-life events, and Al Pacino actually played the role of Wojtowicz in the movie. Thanks for watching. Would you have the guts to stand up to a robber if you worked at a bank, or would you hand over the cash? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time on The Bad Badger.